So, guys, I want to talk about AEW and I want to talk about their recent controversy regarding AEW Grand Slam. And, you know, there's a lot of things to talk about. That, first of all, the big thing that happened was that it was originally supposed to be a pay per view, and now they're trying to sell it as a 2 hour collision special. And it's because they were originally going to be in the Suncorp Arena, 50,000 people. And what a lot of people are saying is that since they're advertising it as a 2 hour show, and that's what they're doing right now, they're actually saying things like, oh, that was the original intention. The original intention of our show was that it was actually going to be a collision special or a television special, and that's completely bullshit. Why would anybody sell out a 50,000 seat arena for a TV show? I don't think even WWE, even in the Attitude Era, would do something like that. So that's definitely very disingenuous. And then ultimately, I think the other thing is that one of the reasons why they want to make this a television special is to be like, okay, obviously the arena that they're moving to is, I think, around like 20,000 or 16,000 seats, and that's an appropriate size for a television show. If the television show is very popular, like a Monday Night Raw, or like when AEW was selling out, its shows in like the first year. So definitely, so definitely, like it's appropriate for a television show size, really. And then the other thing that I want to say is that with AEW, I will say that I do respect them for trying to go to the Suncorp Arena and really trying that out, because it's good to go bigger and better. But definitely, they've kind of really failed in advertising it and making a big deal. And I really think that they kind of gave up a lot on actually, caring about the quality of the show. That's my second point. That I really think that sometimes when you have a big arena and then you're almost like, oh my god, the ticket sales are not going good, you have two options. You have an option to cancel the show, and I think they should have done that. Or they should have done something like, say, okay, we're going to knock people's socks off, we're going to make it such a draw that people will actually want to go there, and then you actually do a really good sale and everything like that. And I really think that that's been like a huge issue with AEW, is that they've definitely kind of had the mentality of, what, we got the television deal, we're down in the dumps, really, and we're really not picking themselves up, really. Like, I really just think that, really this show has kind of become like a Passover until, Revolution. Like, Revolution is going to be the pay per view that they actually really cared. And just remember, like, the big selling point for AEW has always been their pay per views. That's kept them above water. And I think with the new TV deal, or if they're doing something like, okay, well, all of our pay per views are going to be streamed on Max, it's like what happens with WWE, that, the pay per view quality is going to drop, really, because you're going to have millions of dollars come to you versus, having to make a show and getting the $1 million off of fans, really. Like, when you have to do a pay per view that people have to pay like $50 for, you actually have to make it worth it. But when you actually are getting like a contracted and guaranteed money, you can drop the quality. And that's not what I want to see from AEW, is, just crappy pay per views. And I think that that's the direction that they're going to go in, because, definitely it allows them not to work as hard as they should. Or when they have a show and there isn't a good buy rate, they may just say, you know what, to hell with it. We're going to just treat it like a special episode of Dynamite. We don't care about the fans. We don't care about anything like that, really. So I do think that that's the next biggest concern, is that they have a lack of caring about their pay-per-views. They have a lack of, okay, you know what, we should just beat the odds, because we're up against some really tough odds, really. So we really don't have that type of, care about going bigger and better with AEW. I also will say that one of the other controversies was, what some people are saying a lot. Like, there's JD from New York who said, like, on Twitter, that there are a bunch of people talking about how they had really good seats at the Suncorp Arena. Now they're being moved to, really crappy seating at the other arena that they're going to. And also, that there may be people who have not bought tickets to the Suncorp, but now they're getting better seating, or they're paying less for seating and everything like that, really. So the people who are the hardcore fans, paying for the VIP seating and paying for all those experiences, they may not receive, the matching ticket and everything like that. And I'm not sure how true that is or not, really. But I really think that, anybody can argue for a refund, or anybody can argue anything like that, really. Like saying, okay, you know what, I paid for a $4,000 seat. Why should I be sitting in the very, very back row when you are moving me to another arena when I paid so much, really? Like, I hope that that's not true. I wish I had more evidence of that to say if that's true or not. And definitely that's not good. And I'm happy that people are talking about that if that is true, because obviously there are times at many shows where people do get ripped off, really, and that's not good at all, really, because that says, fuck the fan and fuck how much money that you spend, really. And I also like people talking about this because it reminds me of what happened to me at AEW all in last year. No, I'm at AEW Double or Nothing, where I got great seating at ringside, but they moved me to the stage area right next to Pyrotechnic. And because of PTSD, because when I was a kid, I went to a summer camp and I would have people or camp counselors throw like chairs and other objects at me. I don't like being startled, and I was misdiagnosed with autism. So sometimes what my parents would do would poke me in the side or punch a table, or hit me from behind when I'm not looking, because they want to see me jump and thinking that's a cute autistic trait, really. But the point of it is that I was happy that when I did my review and I was talking about that, I was happy that I voiced that, because obviously if I'm paying $500 for a seat, and it's ringside, if I move to a crappy section, why should I just be like saying, wow, this is a great show, wow, this was awesome? No, I have to be like, you know what, you fucked me over, and I'm going to talk about how I've been fucked over, because I don't want anybody to experience that. And I'm not going to, like, if you serve me a McDonald's burger and I'm paying for a $500 burger, I'm not going to say, well, even if the burger was excellent, no, you ripped me off, really. And I do not respect people who rip me off. You don't let people take advantage of you like that, and definitely this is true about what's happening at the Brisbane show, where people who have bought really good seating at the Suncorp Arena are now getting new tickets without any, like, discussion, and they're going and getting bad seating, then everybody has the right to kind of, like, just talk about that and just give us evidence that that's going on, because that's not right. And AEW needs to be put on blast for this. So does Ticketmaster or AXS or whatever, ticket company, because that's just, that's not right. And then people should call their banks and be like, okay, maybe I can get a refund, or maybe I can say that's fraud, really, because, I think in a case that is fraud, because you are not getting what you paid for, or you're not like, or you're getting like an exchange of a ticket, but it's not equivalent to what you paid for originally, So, as if they did that for WrestleMania, nobody would like paying $8,000 for a seat ringside, and then, oh, well, you're moved all the way to the back of an arena that somebody's probably paying like a few $100s for. That's not good. I think the other issue with this is definitely, like I've said, about saving all the matches for Revolution. And this is one of the biggest issues with AEW, and they've never really seemed to learn their lesson about this, is they need to stop having multiple special shows, and they need to stop having multiple pay-per-views in the same month. And what I mean by that is, like, they usually have Ring of Honor pay-per-views, like, adjacent to a lot of their AEW shows. Like, and also that's true of their special shows. Like, you look at December, you had the New York City show, and you had the New York City show. Then you also had the Ring of Honor show, and then you also had AEW World's End. And they weren't smart enough to do something like say, okay, let's take some matches off of some Continental Classic matches, and let's put them on the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, because it's starting to get monotonous. There's other, like, tag team stuff, and or things that we can really build up, really. Or you look at what happened last year, in last April 2023, their worst month, where they had I believe they had a Battle of the Belt show, and then they also had AEW Dynasty, and then they had Ring of Honor Supercard of Honor, and that's also when they had the special episode where they aired the CM Punk footage. Like, if you have way too many special shows in 1 month, it just it desaturates, and people just say, oh, well, why should I watch all this stuff? Because you're kind of diluting it by having too many special shows and pay-per-views. And then the other thing too is that you look at what this is doing, where they're saying, okay, well, Grand Slam was not the result that we wanted, so we're going to drop the quality of this show, and we're going to salvage ourselves with Revolution, or we're going to do something like, okay, we're just going to have our special, we're going to get through it. It's like a trip to the doctor's office where, you know what, something's going to get stuck up our ass, and then after that happens, we're going to we're going to like knock people's socks off with AEW Revolution, and whoever complains, you know, we're just going to ignore them. So it really shows that they don't care about their fan base. They don't care about saying, okay, you know what, people, there may be some people who actually live in the US or Hawaii, and, you know, some flights to Australia are really cheap when you do it through California, or even Hawaii, and they want to see this stuff. Or there's people like me who travel to every show, and there's people who can afford to travel internationally. What happens if there's somebody in New York who wants to travel to Australia, and this is part of their vacation, and they have a shitty AEW show, and then the mentality is, oh, well, you know what, things didn't work out the way for AEW, so now we're going to wait until Revolution to actually be serious. It makes me very worried about my ticket to Dynasty in Philadelphia, because if they're going to do something like, okay, Revolution's a big deal, so now we have AEW Dynasty in Philadelphia, and that's not going to be, and that's one of their monthly pay-per-views. That's not like one of their big four pay-per-views. The other big four is Double or Nothing. So they may say, okay, well, Philadelphia, it has a good market, but we're going to do our next, you know, really caring about our pay-per-view at Revolution, and then we're going to save it to Double or Nothing. And then after Double or Nothing, we're going to, you know, wait until All In to do our next big one, and then we're going to do Forbidden Door because they're having that in the UK, and they usually do a good UK crowd. So it kind of is something where they can't be doing like those transitional pay-per-views, which means that, you know, you're just having a pay-per-view, you don't care about the quality, but you're going to save the best quality for another pay-per-view. And that's just not good, because as I said, like, a bunch of people do care about AEW, and they're known for having great pay-per-views. Like, why ruin your own reputation for that? So it's just, you know, really unfortunate that they're doing that. And then the next thing that I would say is that they should do a part one and a part two. Like I always say, that sometimes when you do back-to-back pay-per-views, you need to set up things for both shows. Like I've said, like, you know, what would happen if you did something like have Anthony Bowens and Billy Gunn versus the Hurt Syndicate, and then what happens is Max Caster fucks that up, and then you have Max Caster versus Anthony Bowens at AEW Revolution in a LA Riot street fight match, and then you have Max Caster and Anthony Bowens actually have matches every single week, or they're on separate shows because they'll fight each other, and they're actually winning. They have a win record, and it looks like that they're legitimate people. Like, that would be a good part one to part two. You take Big Bill, and then you also take Powerhouse Hobbs. So you do something like, you give them a match like a street fight in Brisbane, and then what you do after that is, like, maybe you do like, okay, they knock each other out, or they both fall into something, and then you end it that way, or you have Powerhouse Hobbs win, and then what you do is that you set up, okay, we're going to have 3 stages of hell, you know, 3 chapters of Hobbs match. So you have the first match at Revolution, Brian Keith versus Hobbs, then Big Cass versus Hobbs, then Chris Jericho versus Hobbs. Hobbs gets through all of them, or you have Chris Jericho beat him in a DQ. Then you set up at Supercard of Honor in April, because you have like that show, that Ring of Honor show in April, you have Hobbs versus Chris Jericho. You kind of see all these like tie-in stuff. I think another one that I would have done is you do Dustin Rhodes versus MJF in Brisbane, and then you do Jeff Jarrett versus MJF at Revolution, and then Dustin tries to save him, and then you see MJF beat down Dustin, or Dustin's still like hurt and injured, and then you kind of see Sammy Guevara beat the shit out of MJF, and you set up Sammy Guevara versus MJF, and you create a feud, and then you make Sammy Guevara more of a single star. You're seeing what I'm saying. There's always ways for them to tie in stuff and to kind of be like, okay, well, this is like the first part. This is like chapter 1. This is chapter 2. And you're not really getting that. You know, you're not really getting that with AEW, and that's so simple, and they're so and there's so many things that you can give a great match and you can lead to something else. Another great match is Toni Storm versus Mariah May. How many times have I said this? You have a match, you have Toni Storm win, you have her get beaten down by Marina Shafir. You set up Marina Shafir versus Toni Storm at AEW Revolution. You may have Marina Shafir hold the title, and then you could do something like Marina Shafir goes on to Ring of Honor. She nearly kills Billy Stark. Tony gets so Tony Khan gets so angry with her. He strips her of the AEW championship. You create a tournament for Dynasty, and then Marina Shafir's like, know what? I wanted to get Athena, and because she used to say something like, no, my goal was to have both of these titles really, and I always wanted to get Athena. How great it would be for me to defeat a champion that's been champion for 2 years, and I can just say that in a month I've had both of these women heavyweight titles and all that, so you can kind of you get what I'm saying really. Then you set up Athena versus Marina Shafir at Supercard of Honor. Marina Shafir wins, and then you actually have Athena and Billy Starks and Marina Shafir all get graduated to the AEW roster, and then you make then you make Marina Shafir the ROH Women's Championship, and you have her in matches. Then you put Marina Shafir in the Anarchy Arena match, and then you also have Athena. You put Athena in it, and then you put Marina Shafir in it, and then you create a great match that way. So that's always kind of like the issue with AEW, is that they are not good with multiple stories and multiple pay-per-views, or multiple things, twists and turns like that can transition to other pay-per-views. They've done that, but they've kind of stopped that as well. Or another example is Hangman Adam Page. They're setting up Hangman Adam Page versus MJF. So honestly, if you do Jeff Jarrett versus MJF at Revolution or Grand Slam, you can honestly lead to Adam Page. You can lead to Adam Page, facing MJF eventually, or he has a match, and then, or you set up something okay, what if Adam Page likes to beat up people, so you set up Adam Page versus Daniel Garcia, and then, MJF kind of interferes or fucks him over and just says, you know what, you've been an asshole to me and you're paying the price now. Then you kind of have a good dynamic. Or you do something you actually have, Daniel Garcia, you have him have a match now, then you have him versus Shane Taylor, and then Shane Taylor beats him, and then Shane Taylor has the Shane Taylor, television ass whooping open challenge, and then eventually you have him versus Daniel Garcia, or you do him versus Anthony Bowen to make Anthony Bowen a single star. There's so many tie-in stuff that they can really do, and they don't really do that. So that's also another big thing. And that's one of the reasons why I think AEW Grand Slam is a huge missed opportunity, because there's so many stories that they can kind of tell. That's okay, this is being set up this is a great match, but we're going to have a greater match at Revolution, so both shows feel good. So it's ultimately as I said with AEW, is that they kind of succumb to their laziness. They succumb to not thinking outside the box really. And then I think the other last thing that I'll say is that it's just not good to not utilize everybody to their best of their abilities, because like I said, Hobbs really needs to be on every single pay-per-view this year, and he needs to be built up. So Cass and Hobbs, that's such a great match. If they had a no DQ match, if that opens AEW Grand Slam, imagine what that's going to do for Hobbs just to beat him, and then, like I said, get to him versus Chris Jericho, give Hobbs the ROH title, and then eventually you can do champion versus champion or something like that. And Hobbs, and this would also be good for Hobbs, because Hobbs can be a workhorse, be the ROH champion, do a good job on that show, get an extra paycheck, and then also go over to AEW, Collision and Dynamite, and then actually hold that title and actually kind of be being prepared to be the AEW champion one day, So, definitely him not being on the Grand Slam card is not good. And then, like I've said about, you look at somebody like Marina Shafir, my storyline, that would be, so good for her to actually have some matches to actually have some singles matches, or maybe a number one contendership, or you do a contendership match with multiple women, who's going to face, the winner at Revolution, and, there's so many, ways you can use people. So if you're going to just have 4 or 5 like matches and not utilize everybody, but just some dream matches. You're not kind of thinking about the future. You're not expanding your talent. You're not taking new challenges and risks. And AEW should have done that with this pay-per-view. And I think the last thing I'm going to say is the scheduling. That they have a really horrible schedule for this show. That the first thing is that I think they're doing this on like a Saturday or a Sunday in Australia. So Australia is a little bit over 12 hours ahead. So what's going to happen is that they're going to tape the show, and then they're going to air it on then they're going to air it on Saturday. So that's the first part of it. So the problem is that everybody's going to know all the results because it's going to be posted online. So what happens if Buddy Matthews beats Okada, and what happens if there's other results where championships change or somebody gets injured, God forbid, or other things. That's going to be on the internet. So then you're not really interested in the show. And then the other part of it is that is that they're saying that there is some confusion about the AEW show. Like some people think it's going to be on Tuesday this week, and some people think it's going to be on Wednesday, just the regular Dynamite show, because they've not done a good job clarifying it. Now they're saying that they're filming the show on Tuesday, and they're airing it on Wednesday, but they said it in a very clusterfuck, confusing type of way, and I just it just is confusing. When Dustin Rhodes said, MJF, I'm going to meet you on Tuesday, you should have never said this. You should have said I should have meet you. We're gonna meet in Austin, and that's that really. Like they've kind of confused people about the Dynamite show. So people are gonna be like, okay, the lead in episode, the last show before Grand Slam, we don't even know what's gonna be on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, and that's fucking ridiculous. And then the last part of it is that they said that some people are saying it's gonna be on 10:30, but they're gonna do the NBA playoff on TNT. So when they show so they're going to show Grand Slam, the 2-hour special, on television after the NBA playoff. So a lot of people are saying 10:30, but what that means is that you don't even know when the show's going to come on. Are you going to watch the NBA playoff? And I hate sports, So am I going to actually be like, okay, well I'm going to be checking in like every half an hour and being like, okay, is Grand Slam going to be on? Is Grand Slam going to be on? Is Grand Slam going to be on? Well, what's going to happen if it's past midnight? And then Sunday morning I work overtime. What's going to happen if I said to myself, you know what, when is it going to be on HBO Max? Is it going to be on HBO Max the same time it's going to be on TNT or TBS? And if that is the case, then it's like, okay, then okay, instead of airing at 8 p.m. on HBO Max, it's going to be like delayed because it's delayed on the other channel as well, really. So because they want to do a simulcast type of thing, it's just stupid. And then the other thing too is that what's going to happen with a person like me who, I have to pick up overtime like Sunday because I have a show I have to save for my trip to Tennessee. And I'm like, okay, so I probably won't even watch it because then I'm going to be like, okay, then I have to watch it on Monday morning because that's when I have time off to watch it. And then unfortunately on Monday morning, I get out of work really. So it's like I have to work overnight, and then I watch it on Monday morning, and then I got to review it, and all that stuff really. Or other people will be reviewing it on like Saturday night or late Monday or late Sunday morning, or whatever really. And then I have to lose out on overtime. So it's ultimately like because it's because it's up in the air when it's actually going to show. Most people don't know when it's going to happen really, and it's like a huge clusterfuck. And then it's like it's a runaround for a lot of fans to know when the show's going to be on really. And then ultimately, as people will say this, if it is a special event, and if it's something that went from a 50,000 seat show to a show / pay-per-view to a 12,000 or 12,000 and less at a different arena, and now it's also going to get another hit because most people don't know when it's going to be on, and it's only advertised for like 4 matches and not really a big card where they can kind of build up stars for this year. Now we don't know when the fuck the thing's going to be on really, and the whole mentality is, you know what, we're just gonna like go over to Australia, eat shit like the taste of it. Maybe it's gonna work out like a lottery ticket, maybe it's not, and then it's going to become a and that's going to be like that's going to become like AEW's going to like get over this, get over the criticism, and then in 2 weeks then in 2 weeks it's probably going to all go away, and then it's going to be all about Revolution in California. It just feels like an opportunity for them to stand out, really start the year strong. They're going to fuck it up really, and they don't care about fucking it up, and they don't care about like the scheduling and everything because. As I said, I really think that the big issue is complacency. The big issue is that when things don't work out for AEW, they don't have a mentality like Vince McMahon had in the early 90s when WrestleMania 2 wasn't that great, making WrestleMania 3 awesome. Whenever you struggle or whenever there's failures, you have to make sure that if people are still buying something, you knock their feet off and then you learn all your lessons. And I think the lesson they learn is that don't go to a market that is not strong. If they have a large market in Spain, like they say, okay, well, 100,000 people or more are watching our shows live, they can buy out the Barcelona theater in Madrid. That I think the Barcelona theater that can see over 100,000 people. Or if they realize that if they have a bad like market in South America or Mexico City, why go there? So they need to learn not to go to bad markets or not to be like, okay, you know what, well, we're going to take a risk. Well, the risk is not working out, so we're just not going to care. You have to go all in, really. But that's the main thing about it. That it's really just clear that they just don't care, and they are getting to that WWE mindset of just like when you saw Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins in the Hell in a Cell match. They threw that show under the bus because they wanted to change the titles in front of the Saudi crowd because the show was WrestleMania caliber. And then they were also kind of like, okay, well, if we change the title there, it means more. And so it's a more of a giveaway to them, really. So you can't. AEW was never meant to be like that. They were meant to take every pay per view seriously, show their best, utilize their full roster and all that, and build new stars and all that. But this has really become a show of complacency. And ultimately, like if you invested any money into watching AEW Grand Slam or going there live, they totally screwed the pooch on that. And that's not good, really. And then, as I said, WWE has done that multiple times in their history. Why should Tony should have never got to this point lowering the standard or be like, okay, we're going to pass off our pay-per-views and everything like that. And wrestling is fun and it's all about having a good time with like the wrestlers because they know it's all bullshit and it's not serious. So, they've gotten to a mentality of not caring, a mentality of complacency, and that's going to hurt the company long term. So hopefully they've learned from this failure that they still have time. Like still have like the Collision show on Saturday and the Dynamite show on Tuesday, the taping, to really just fix things and make it a big show and actually bring stars like Hobbs and Cass and make them a big deal and realize that there's some like multiple month stories that they can tell to make sure that they make AEW, Grand Slam, Revolution, Dynasty, and Supercard of Honor, the Ring of Honor pay-per-view that's usually in April, all great shows. Really. There's a lot that they can do to make great television. It's ultimately that they don't care about raising their standard, and if they have an issue, they're like, we're just going to like not care as much. We have the attitude of complacency, and that's going to hurt AEW long term. So I'm happy to talk about the AEW Grand Slam controversy of complacency.